Hello there. Good afternoon. Hi, everyone. Welcome to TeamLease Digital webinar. Okay, without further ado, we begin. Welcome to the TeamLease Digital webinar once again. An interesting topic for today, women at the heart of India's digital evolution. While we've been doing a lot of different topics for the entire last year and discussed on skills, AI, job roles, geographies, GCCs, our today's topic is very close to heart. And I'm sure you will all agree with us. We have an all-woman panelist here with us to discuss a very important and a very interesting topic of women in workforce. And within women in workforce, we are going to discuss some interesting trends on the women in tech in our workforce today. India is experiencing a notable surge in digital adoption. Along with an increased focus on diversity and inclusion, it has consequently moved and improved the participation of women across the various sectors and functions within the tech sector. Simultaneously, there is also a lot of growing emphasis on encouraging more women to participate and pursue careers in STEM. In this webinar, we will explore the multifaceted contributions of women across the different sectors, domains of the digital India landscape. From entrepreneurship to technology, education and governance, women are leading initiatives. They are creating innovating solutions and breaking barriers to career to create a more inclusive and equal digital ecosystem. Let's begin. And we have some very interesting women panelists today with us speaking about our webinar. Let me please welcome you first. We have Gigi Oman, Chief Technology Officer from Aavas Financiers Limited. Gigi is a visionary technology thought leader, a digital architect who thrives on building, operating, and transforming robust, scalable technology and digital ecosystems. She's currently working as the Chief Technology Officer at Aavas and has a deep stabilization and specialization in retail financial services space, while she brings along a wealth of expertise and track record of success in driving high impact technology and digital transformation programs. She also has a very strong business acumen and worked across CXO roles of multiple listed companies for the last couple of years. Welcome you, Gigi, to our webinar today.
Thank you, Munira.
We next have joining Gigi is Karishma Mahanti, Director People Operations from Pretium. Karishma is the Director of People Operations at Pretium currently. She's an experienced HR professional with 20 plus years of successful track record, and she has steered many HR functions in organizations of repute. She has a vast experience in the field of strategic HR, aligning HR goals with the overall organizational goals to drive business excellence. In the past, she has worked with organizations like Deloitte, Concentrix, and Kenamital. Welcoming you, Karishma, to our webinar.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here, honored to be here. Thanks a lot.
We next have Ms. Nishigandha Sandbhor, HR Director, FIS Group. Nishigandha is currently working as a Director, Business Partner at FIS Global, Pune. She's an experienced HR professional with more than 2 decades of work experience, demonstrating business challenges and providing relevant co-authored HR solutions in the areas of business partnering, employee engagement, restructuring of the organization, and L&D. She has been instrumental in playing pivotal roles in organizations to create diversity, equity, and inclusion as key projects, both for organizations and for the community. Welcome you, Nishigandha.
Thank you. Really excited to be part of this webinar.
Well, wonderful. I think we have some great women on the show here today. And while I've been introducing each one of them, I'm so excited to know more about your journey and your experience of both, joining the workforce and encouraging more women to the workforce. Let us quickly take a run through. I mean, TeamLease Digital released its recent report on the 16th of April. We launched our white paper report on the women at the heart of India's digital tech evolution. I'd like to start by asking all of you, a quick question saying that what do you think about the growing participation of women workforce in the tech industry over the last decade? We have seen some drastic change. There's a 28% surge in the overall women enrollment of STEM itself in the last decade. And I'd like to know from each one of you, in your views, in your thoughts, how has this really rised? I mean, starting from maybe Gigi, you can quickly go first, and Rishi and Karishma could just help.
Yeah, thank you, Munira. Thank you, TeamLease, for having me here on this forum. I think when I started off my journey almost 25 years back, there were very few women in this space. I mean, hardly very few. And when I used to go to networking forums, you will hardly find, and the leadership forums, you would hardly find any women in those groups, right? But I think things have changed quite dramatically in the recent years. Of course, it is also a function of the diverse career options which have come in the recent years. You have so many different options, right? Whether it is to do with software engineering, analytics, AI, cloud, cybersecurity. So variety of tech roles have come in. That is one change that I've seen. Of course, the other aspect is that more and more women are getting educated, enrolling for engineering. I mean, the beyond the traditional, educational stream. So I think both have come in parallel. And third, of course, there is a lot of promotion. There is a lot of talk about the impact that women can bring to the table, and in general, diversity and inclusion in across all spaces. So while every tech has its own dynamics and challenges, but then I feel that largely it is an evolution which has happened across across various domains when it comes to women's participation. But largely the tech has also evolved a lot, and there are wide variety of career options available for women to choose from. And it's been definitely a fabulous journey. I mean, I now clearly see that there is a very good proportion of my technology team are represented by women. So quite happy to see that change happening now.
Interesting. Yeah, I agree with you. I think back then we hardly had any women, even as peers. Forget about as leaders.
Yeah.
That was, but I think even as peers, or possibly even as entry level interns joining us. But I think the scenario has drastically changed. And thanks for sharing about the new age technology roles which you highlighted about. Nishi, on the same context, while the technology and the new age roles or job functions have evolved, sectoral growth has also impacted the rise of women. So some information from your end on that would be helpful. I mean, what do you think sector-wise?
So sector-wise, what we typically see is, in the socio-economic cultural environment that we are in, there are a lot of gender stereotypes that existed and continue to exist in the society around. But I think one thing that has helped us over the years to get into sectors like STEM, which has traditionally been a male-dominated domain, right, is the reports that we see, the stats that gets published. Couple
Nishi,
of years.
yeah, we're back. Yes, we have you back. Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes.
I can't hear you for some reason.
Yeah,
now I can.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I truly believe once all these stats start getting published, there's a lot of
Nishi, I think we are losing you in between. Okay, while we have Nishi back, I think there's a network glitch. Karishma, what are your thoughts? Since on the panel here itself, we have, all of us from different industries and different segments of the workforce. What are your thoughts? I mean, you coming in from a very different industry, unlike,
Yes.
being an HR of an organization today, which is into more of infrastructural spaces. How would you see the evolution and rise of women, over the last decade? And Karishma, we come back to you after, Nishikanta, we come back to you after Karishma. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Munira and TeamLease for having me here. I have been a part on the other side, in my role as an HR professional, to devise the DI programs in the organizations and to see the mindset of managers, leadership, peers evolve over a period of time from working in with women in traditional roles to non-traditional roles. So not not more than a decade ago, I was a part of a very traditional manufacturing industry called Metal, hardcore manufacturing. There I have seen women come into shop floor in a manpower of about 2,200 people on shop floor. We started with 5 and we grew to over 7,200 over a period of 3 to 4 years. Women in shop floor, hiring mechanical engineers, hiring women in the sales force of industrial sales. So it's been a great journey, and I've seen more and more interest grow from the women's side also. They are more open to take up non-traditional roles, take up more challenges, and then from the leaders also there has been a shifted mindset. uh, they are more open to and more flexible to have a diverse, not just gender diversity, a thought diversity on their teams. And over a period of time, it has shown proven results that we can have better results, more productivity with a more diverse workforce. Innovation is better.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that has been my experience. And of course, there have been ups and downs also. There have been hiring managers who were not open to look at lady candidates because they are not married, or they would, if they are married, they would go on maternity, so they would not hire them, etc. To people opening up roles only specifically for gender diversity related candidates, it's been a great journey.
Yeah. I think you made a very interesting point. One, obviously, breaking the stereotypes more with the non-tech and core engineering, manufacturing kind of sectors. And secondly, we as women, I think we are also more ready to kind of opt for the roles, So that's where there's
Absolutely.
been a lot of change, amongst us as a mindset to kind of be open to those segments. Nishikanta, if we may quickly understand from you your thoughts and views on the overall rise of women, in the industry, especially the women in tech in the last decade. Okay, I think we still have, she still has a network problem. Nishikanta, can you hear us, please? Okay, maybe we'll just wait for her to join us back. And until then, Gigi, an interesting point, while we heard you, we heard Karishma and a little bit of Nishi about the overall growth of women. Today, women constitute close to about 36%, of the tech workforce. So within tech workforce, you have 36% of women contribution. But from your opinion and point of view, what are the challenges that women in tech face? While the rise is happening, while we see the growth, the non-tech sectors are still yet to grow, but the tech sector is moving pretty much fast. Yet, what are some of the challenges or the barriers that you think women in tech face?
So, Munira, it's an interesting question. See, today, more than 50% of the engineering courses, right, the enrollments are being done by women. But yet, the overall representation is still lower, but it's still, growing at a much faster pace than ever before. But then, as you move up in the career journey, you find a lot of fallouts, right? So so I would say that this numbers are not very consistent when you really look at the overall hierarchical system. Now, what it means is that there are very few women representation in the leadership position, especially on the tech side, which will also have an impact on how you are bringing in the policies and processes to to create or promote that diversity in the organizations, right? So of course it's a journey. I mean, this is something which we are trying to solve now, so obviously it will get better as we move forward. But of course there are limited leadership representation by women, and then of course which also lead to you have very limited set of people that can mentor the the next level of the people or youngsters who are getting into the role. Similarly, right, we women, as we so networking is another very important issue. Of course, especially of course at the entry level, you have more opportunity to network, but then as you grow up, your life's priorities also change, right? So you would may not prefer to, or it may not be viable for you to be part of those networking forums all the time, because you have your own personal family commitments, etc., right? So and of course then work-life balance, flexibility, as the women move forward in the life journey, right, you have a lot of family responsibilities that also divide your attention between the family, and that puts a lot of stress. Of course, the ambitious women still make it happen, right? But then the problem is it will lead to a lot of lot of challenges for them to manage their work and life together. So we've all gone through that journey. I would still feel that if you are ambitious enough, you can make it happen. But then a lot of ecosystem support is required, both from the work environment that you work, and of course your family, society, and all that. So it's a larger evolution that has to happen. But in my view, things are changing. Of course, the youngsters are demonstrating a lot of I would say agility and strength, and of course this should continue, but the ecosystem around us also need to support to make that transformation happen.
True, absolutely, I agree. Nishi, we have you back. Hi there again.
I'm sorry, some technology challenges.
Absolutely. I think that's also an important point we're discussing. Great. So, Nishi, in your opinion, while we were talking about the women in tech and the rise, and what are some of the cultural or societal barriers that women face, an interesting subject is, while India counts for about 43% of women participation in STEM education, but the overall workforce participation ratio drops prominently. So it's almost a 50% of drop, and some statistics say it's about a 29% of women participation, or some say 23%. In your opinion, when I think more women are picking up STEM as a career graph, then what are some of the problems and challenges? Why, as women, we have less women in the workforce? While
So
in
I
other
think GG
ratio is vice versa. You have less participation but higher employment generation.
I think Gigi kind of touched upon it in terms of the ecosystem. And I think the socio-cultural environment, which I was referring to earlier, that mindset also plays a huge role. Where you're talking about gender stereotypes and saying that technology has always been a male bastion. Right? You don't have a role to play here. So fine, you're okay to get you educated there. But that's about it. And that's where the support ends. And there's this very well-known quote about diversity and inclusion, right? Which says diversity is about being invited to a party, and inclusion is asking you to dance. So, okay, we are now saying that we are progressive. We're allowing you to get into the fields of technology, but are we allowing the women to enter the workforce? Because as you rightly said, there is a huge dip, and that's where the pipeline starts diminishing. So even globally, there's like a 3% dip for women from a STEM education to workforce, And even after joining the workforce, typically within a very short stint, there is a 10% further dip. And then as you move up the ladder, because your biological clock and your personal milestones almost clash for a woman, right, with your career milestones. You get married, you have a child, and the expectation that the woman is expected to be the primary caregiver, whether it's parenting, whether it's taking care of the entire household. And I don't think enough education about this is happening for changing the mindset of the men around us as well. Right.
Yes.
So that's one that, if you have to drive that change, we will not be able to do this alone, because it's dominated by men. I'll give you an example that Amazon had used a tool, AI tool, to filter, their tech resumes. And they found out that the AI tool had a bias towards names which are sounding male. And when they tried to dig deeper into it, and thankfully they stopped that, they figured that because AI learns through what was the previous data.
Okay.
So that bias
Right.
in those practices actually resulted in the AI also getting biased against women.
Correct, because whatever input is fed is what the output will be.
Correct. So when we are talking about the ecosystem, we cannot have the men not understanding equity. And equity is very different than equality, right? Equality is when you're giving same opportunity, same resources to everyone.
Yeah.
But equity goes one step further. Equity understands that everybody is different. Their needs are different, and accordingly giving them the tools to achieve the same outcome. And if I have to give a very, very plain, simple example, you ask three people to pluck some fruits from a tree which is very tall, and you give them the same stool, saying that, okay, we are treating all of you equally. But somebody could be visually impaired. Somebody could be, from a height perspective, a little shorter. But the stool that you've given to all of them is the same. Then there is no equity. There is equality, but there is no equity. And I think there is still a long way to go in terms of the equity, equity mindset at a socio-cultural level. Even when we gift a toy to a girl child, it's usually a doll. We don't give Lego and mechanics to a boy.
Yeah, still I think, yeah. And then we always, for a newborn, we'll say it's a pink color. Let's go easy with since it's a girl child, pick a pink color only.
Yes.
I'm not sure if I would go with a different color altogether and say I'll go for an orange. Doesn't matter. I may not go for a blue, fair enough, but I'll at least go for a different shade. Yeah, I agree. That's good, interesting. And Karishma, I'd like to know from you, since Nishi pointed out about, the participation of women workforce, which is while getting better. And I think our report calls out that at an entry level, we see about 34% of women in tech participation as compared to the male. But the same percentage dips down to almost 11% at leadership roles. Now, we first broke the barrier of STEM, adapting to STEM. We enter the workforce. After which, why is it so difficult, for women at workplace to grow, to rise, to get into more leadership level roles? Why do we still have those challenges? And according to you, how we, as women and organizations together should kind of work towards, which are the 2-3 areas to be worked together?
It's an interesting question that you bring across. See, I'll go by probably management level, because that's where I've seen a lot of change happen. If you go to, let's say, a first-time manager or a mid-level management level, you can still see maybe 11%, 10%. But you go to the senior level or top level of management, the representation of women in the leadership force dips down to maybe sometimes less than 5%.
Absolutely.
The overall leadership. So I think while organizations are also evolving in their mindset, training, sensitivity, etc., but organization cannot do something alone. We also have to look at both for the male and the female colleagues ecosystem or support system that they have. And a lot would go into the mindset also, because you see a lot of women, as they go higher, they start suffering from self-doubt, imposter syndrome. They would, double check themselves. They feel that they have to prove themselves, double work. They have to prove themselves to probably get acceptability at the same level as their male colleagues correspondingly. So a lot of confidence building, and that's where I think Gigi brought about an interesting point about networking and like-minded or maybe a more customized mentoring for women. That is something which helps definitely in building, because unless and until we feel confident as a professional, being a woman, juggling all the responsibilities also that are expected of the personal milestones, it becomes difficult for you have to be really resilient to push through and get. So that's something I've experienced and seen as well.
Yeah, I
I
think
think
over the
the other thing I would like to add here
Yes, Nishi.
is that many years of conditioning, right, has led us
Absolutely.
to always doubt, and there's always this guilt factor, right? No matter what you do, you make
Yeah.
a choice of being a homemaker, you feel that okay, you're not doing justice to your education and everything.
Absolutely.
You're trying to balance things at work and at home. You feel you're not giving enough time to the family, and you look around. I rarely see our male counterparts going through this dilemma, and we live it day in and day out, which adds to the imposter syndrome that Karishma mentioned. So first there is an imposter syndrome and feeling whether I'm good enough. Then
Right.
always having to pay a price if you want to be ambitious.
Yes.
So that adds up to a woman limiting herself, because yes, there is a price, because ecosystem is not going to change overnight. So that also has to change a lot. And if we see more role models doing it and saying that okay, this is what I'm doing, and I think it's absolutely fine. As women, we should stop judging other women. That's the first thing that we have to do. And that guilt factor probably will stay with us all our lives. But once we
Yeah,
make that choice,
you may not be able
the
to do away with that.
Yeah.
Probably
correct. But the
just
earlier we are able
yeah.
to rationalize it, the easier it is for us then to take that plunge, in our careers.
I
Yeah.
agree.
And we try to be perfectionists in whatever we do.
Oh yes.
We are okay with being not so perfect, and that's where the doubt probably comes in more, especially when there are bigger projects or tougher projects where the stakes are high. So, like Nishi said, things will not change in a short time, and there are a lot of factors which affect. So,
Nishi and Gigi, an important question that comes to my mind, while we are talking, and Nishi and Karishma both have shared some interesting insights. I do agree about, how we feel, how we think. I'm sure all of us here sitting here today are quickly recollecting the amount of sacrifices that we made, the number of, parent teachers meeting we would have missed in our lives for our children, and so many things like that, which is going to be part of the life we may not be able to completely achieve, neither will be able to completely give away on that. But one interesting point is that while we are speaking about the STEM participation in the workforce or the overall rise of seats in engineering colleges, I do remember that in the earlier career days, or rather, decades prior, we had very little women opting for maybe a prime time discipline of mechanical engineering or electrical engineering. Usually the softer, BE programs like a computer engineering or maybe electronics engineering were more prominent in us. We made those choices. Now we see it changing. You have women making bold steps about electrical, mechanical, civil for that matter. And this ratio is very high when it comes to the tier 1 and the tier 2 cities. What is your thought on that? While the ratio is high, in how are we able to employ them? Is it happening enough that we are able to employ them?
I mean, see, it is quite natural that the pace at which the tier 1 and tier would 2 cities would move, you can't compare the tier 3s and 4s and below moving at the same pace, because opportunities are limited there, right? And of course, for girls to migrate to a new city, making career there, making a life there, all that are not easy. While we have, people like us may have gone through that process, but it may not be easy for, many of them to do that, right? So I think with post-COVID, there is also a mindset change has happened. Infrastructural preparations also have taken place. We have learned how to work remotely. So what I largely feel is that there is a huge talent pool available in tier 3 and below cities, because or towns and rural areas, because the education system is catching up. And if you look at the overall population, your larger manpower is actually in the rural areas and the tier 2 and tier 3 and below areas, right? So I think it needs a focused attention and effort to see that how we can leverage this talent pool from or tap into this talent pool from the early stage of the education itself. And that is where the larger economic transformation is going to take place, right? So I would definitely welcome or urge the organization to really look at the possibilities for setting up or give the roles which women can do virtually, and give them the opportunity to do that, and also maybe the larger the corporate ecosystem to basically set up smaller tiny remote centers which can hook to their larger ecosystem. But then they can be mini delivery centers which can be closer to the homes of the people, so they don't have to go through this pain of moving to or process of moving to the larger cities to build a career. Because today you have connectivity everywhere, you have good education ecosystem, and its infrastructure is what is required now. Over the last few years post COVID, right? So even the technology security framework has also gone through a massive change. You have the ability to enable people work remotely. Of course, every role cannot be performed remotely. So I think it's a combination of both, right? So give the opportunity. I mean, of course, when you are close to your home or when you're working from your home versus you have to come and settle down in a bigger city, pay more rents, bigger bills, your cost of living is much higher. But if you are at your home or closer to your home in smaller towns, your cost of living is much lower, and hence your of course you're you don't need that kind of a pay parity, but you will still live a happy and better net compensation, right? So I think the overall it comes to the same point, right? The ecosystem has to really evolve to make it happen. And I feel that there is a huge talent pool available out there, and we have to really make that transformation happen over the the years to come. And that is where your balancing of the equation will happen, right? We have larger pool of women coming out of the engineering colleges, but less are getting into jobs. And then as you move up in the career ladder, the numbers drop. So I think there is no quick fix to or formula to this, but I think the overall ecosystem has to understand, support, evolve to make this change happen. And that's definitely going to make a huge impact to the economic situation as well, right? I mean, it's not something which you're doing it for social cause alone, right? It is also going to make a huge impact to the economy, the country's economy, the world's economy, right, as a whole.
True, absolutely. Yeah, and I think two questions that lead me from Gigi's conversation. One is on the gender pay parity between the male and the women employees within organizations or within career roles. And second, most importantly, as she made a point about offering more flexible work hours or more hybrid work models. I think today, somewhere as India is offshoring talent to the world, GCCs are enabling in some way to kind of fix this problems to a certain extent. In fact, our report speaks about a very interesting trend of how, from the overall GCCs, 35% is women contribution, and 25% of that is in tech roles. So that's an element. And I'd like to understand from you, Nishigandha and Karishma, both, since, you've experienced and, you've worked with GCCs across, how do you think that, the rise of, everyone's projecting that possibly GCC will be one sector where you may see in a couple of next years, gender diversity at a 50-50 ratio. There's a high probability. Having said that done today, do you see gender pay parity also becoming an issue in GCCs? I mean, what's your take on that?
No, I think like I mentioned earlier, because whatever is getting measured is being improved. Right now that there is a talk about pay parity. Earlier it was just participation. Then we said, okay, we move one step ahead. Are you giving the same kind of benefits, same kind of compensation? And then you start looking at gender parity, whether at the time of hiring, are you treating them at an equal footing, whether when it comes to compensation. And I think GCCs are also very tech enabled in that sense, right? And they use that data well. So there is a lot of conscious efforts from organization to ensure gender parity when it comes to compensation, because now as your commitment to diversity, inclusion, and equity, there is a lot of focus. It is part of the CU agenda, and there is also a correlation. Wherever there is a leadership commitment for these kind of initiatives, you see a drastic improvement in participation, and it starts with measuring. So I think, in fact, with GCCs coming in, and because there is so much of increased awareness around this, one, you kind of keep on looking at the data. So whenever organizations look at any kind of compensation data, merit increments that they do, there is a conscious effort to see that there is no unconscious bias involved, and the increment is not lesser, and it starts at that stage of hiring. Then it moves to performance management, that you're not rating somebody higher basis her gender or a bias that you may not know. So now, because we are reporting, measuring, there is a conscious effort, and within the organization the ecosystem is getting built. The second is the awareness in the larger ecosystem is also enabling women to be more confident about asking for what they deserve. And typically, you'll always see that, while demanding a promotion, a man will be far more confident.
Yeah.
Women will probably wait for a year or two and then say, oh, can I, when? But I think now that we are talking about the empowerment, so it's a two-way process. And I feel, in fact, the GCCs can accelerate it further to bring in more parity.
I think they have in some way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, Karishma, your views.
To add to what Nishi said, I agree. What gets measured and highlighted starts getting, worked upon. And talking about GCCs, since it's a still evolving model, there are a lot of organizations who are very high on the trend of gig working.
True.
Gig working, flexibility, a lot of hybrid options, flexible working options, defining certain core hours for overlap and connectivity, and then people can choose their own working hours depending on the deliverables. And another thing which is catching up quite a bit, is the hub and spoke kind of model in workspace spaces. They can have a couple of main work offices, but they can have in tier 2, tier 3 cities also co-working spaces being procured by the organizations, and then people tapping the talent pool there. So that is also adding a lot, not just for the cost benefit for the organization, but also empaneling and working with a diverse skill set and talent pool. And of course, pay disparity, people are moving towards pay for the candidate, the skills, and not the person. So that's also evolving. Of course, it will take a while, but merit increase and how you are hiring, what is the kind of package you are giving to a candidate, and considering what is the peer benchmark. So that also is something people are measuring more and more and getting more conscious about. So we may not be there yet, but we're moving towards it.
Yeah. I think more importantly, it is that
Hmm.
how we need to understand our rights and our measures. I think we always have a fear of assumption first, rather than asking and resolving. In fact, some couple of years back, Naukri had also highlighted about saying that, and LinkedIn also supported by saying that, imagine how many women workforce, especially in tech and in non-tech both. So the ratio in non-tech functions drops further, but how many women would update their resumes periodically? Second option is, do you see more women, opting for mobility on locations? You'll generally restrict to your base location, because obviously it's not possible for you to leave your entire house, family, and then I'll say, okay, I can go and work in Delhi also today, not an issue. So those are few things which are there and which may remain for a longer period of time. But I think if we can resolve in smaller pockets, this helps. This also makes an interesting, understanding for me, where I see, FIS, Avas, financial organizations, and last 2 years there's been a lot of hiring in financial sector for women employees, and one of the segments hired in these industries is women with breaks, career breaks. So I'd like to know both from you, Gigi and Nishigandha, do you think organizations, while they are making best effort possible, but when women with breaks are hired, what amount of time or training or investment is made to kind of bring back the person to a full-fledged career or maybe a team? Do you think that there's enough happening and women are able to kind of meet productivity within what period of time?
Yeah, so
I think,
Munira, if I may go first,
Yes.
sorry, Nishigantha, you
no,
want
please
to?
go ahead. Go
Okay,
ahead.
okay. So I think this point is highly connected with the pay-related point that we all have spoken about, right? So when you enter at the workplace, at the first place, you're not negotiating enough to be at par with your peers. So I think since your audience are primarily women, right, I would like to make a few point of views or suggestions there that uh, your competency levels are same, right? So when you are being hired at for certain level of competency and the job role, negotiate tough for the best compensation. So you need to learn the art of negotiation, right? And then secondly, that now once you are in, then of course your growth is largely a function of how you perform in that role and how you make yourself ready for the next role elevations, etc., your performance appraisals and all of that. I feel that and if you are up there, then there should not be any major difference in the in the parity in the pay. But then at the same time, when you have to move up in the role, the job role and your performance is not the only function, right? You need to have allies, you need to network with people. There should be people who should talk good about you. So as you go up in the ladder, the dynamics changes completely, and we face challenges there, frankly, because the way in which, so if you have one of you have said, right, we have less than 5% women in the, I think, Karishma, you said, right, in the leadership role, and I've been in the CXO role for the last many years now, and it is true. I mean, you may be the only one in the room,
Yeah.
and then filled with the male colleagues, and the way in which they network, you can't network, right? Of course, you will network more on the work front. You may not be able to join them in those conversations all the time. So we have to accept and admit the fact that we have challenges in doing that, and we can't. I mean, it's hard. So then we focus more in overdoing stuff and proving ourselves with work, and our work has to speak for volumes. So that puts us into a lot of stressful situation, and I've really gone through this process over the years, and honestly, it is a natural problem, right? Now, coming back to the question of we have to admit that it's a problem, and it doesn't have a quick fix. Of course, it is going to be a function of the organization's maturity level to understand and acknowledge both and measure both differently, right? I mean, it's not about, so when you may not be the Miss Popular or Mrs. Popular in the organization, but if your work makes you popular, the organization has to understand and acknowledge and appreciate that. So I think it's the function and maturity level of the organization ecosystem. That's one. So let me now come back to the real question that you have asked me. Of course, see, my thought is always that women should not take longer breaks, because when you, especially in the technology, and I think every job role changes and evolves so fast that if you take really longer roles, longer breaks, it's hard for you to really pop up with the changes happening in the workplace now. So, of course, there are women have various needs, right, in their life journey to really support the family ecosystem, your health, and so many aspects, right? So there is no problem in taking breaks, but I feel longer the break would be harder for you to really get back on track, because when you come back, you will see that your peers may have moved really faster in their roles, and you yourself, put you in a very hard position, or mentally you have to adjust yourself, right? That I am okay to be two levels down the my peers, and it is okay for me. So everybody needs to find what is right for them, because there is no formula. Something which I may find good for me may not be found good by someone else. So everybody has their own unique life. For someone, the work-life balance may be more important than their career growth, and they're happy with the moderate growth. That is also fine, right? I mean, you have 5 fingers in your hand, and all of them have different length and thickness, and you use each one of them for different purposes, right? So I honestly feel that one should not get into this stress ki acha maine break le liya, wapas aa gaya, so I need to be at par. So I don't think you need to take that kind of a pressure. Everybody has their own life, and you have to see what is right for you. And definitely, if you take longer break and come back, it will take you some time to really get back on track, right?
True. Interesting. But Nishi and Karishma, if you also agree with me, whatever Gigi pointed out, is that not a problem with maybe, more of our age group, but the younger woman today, what I see, whether I see my niece, I see my kids, or I see my interns around, I don't think that they really are in a pressure of proving anyone, trying to make a mark. They are also not too interested about growing the career ladder up and becoming someone's leader. In fact, they are more interested in creating specializations for them, being individual. Like my daughter will tell me, "Are you mad? I'm not going to work 5 days a week. I will work 2 days, one day I want break." So they want a job which is job allowing them to do a bungee jumping every weekend, allowing them to party in the evening. That's a very different culture again. And while we are today all the time, our we've been born and brought up about with a lot of ownership. We have a lot of responsibilities also. But I don't think the younger women today are really worried about that. So how do you think? I mean, is it that we really need to do anything about themselves, or they're good with whatever they're doing, they'll fight their battles?
No, I think we need to, because what you're talking about, Munira, is a very city population that you're still addressing, and that too,
Okay.
still a small sector of what we see around. With,
Right.
if I may say so, a pretty elite generation who can choose to say this. And if you go even within the city to a little more different demographics, the realities are very different. And while I agree with Gigi that the longer break is a challenge, but there's a dichotomy. The woman wants to return to work, there's no support system.
Yeah.
She's the only one who's managing the child. And when it comes to hand holding women in that phase, I think it starts from the time she tells the organization that I'm expecting. Are you raising an eyebrow and wondering, oh my God, is that the reaction that you get from the organization?
Yeah.
And to be fair, if the organization is not giving an appropriate backfill, how does the manager manage, suppose, an already overloaded team?
True.
Right? So you have to even start looking at why is a person reacting in this way to a woman colleague being away for 6 months. So again, coming back to ecosystem, as an organization, are you providing additional colleague and manpower to manage that work? Because I think if that is done, this reaction will probably stop, right? Second is this whole training around unconscious bias and making it more inclusive. Engaging them throughout is very important. I think, look at all of us. One of the reasons we continue to thrive is at some point we had organizations and managers who assured us that it's fine, go take a break, we'll take care of you. I think whether we're a man or a woman, and depending even whatever generation you're talking about, that sense of belonging means that there is a certain understanding, appreciation of what you're going through, and a flexibility that the ecosystem is giving you. I think if that is given, then the loyalty is, again, and I'm drawing examples from probably what all of us have gone through and why we are still continuing to work with that kind of a passion. Because there was somewhere down there who was believing in us, who was telling us it's all okay, who was connected with us, who helped us settle down. And then, of course, you usually have this inclusion networks, you have peer groups to talk to, which is again part of creating the ecosystem, having the right kind of role models around saying that, listen, I could do this, you can do that as well. But at the same time, I think one very, very important thing I would like to call out, that women should not take any undue advantage of the benefits that they get on account of maternity, or from an equity or an equitable workforce perspective, because then it just pulls down the entire agenda. Then that one bad example
Correct.
will lead to 10 deserving women not getting their due. So it's extremely important that we are responsible, we are committed. India is one of the few countries who has like 26 weeks of paid leave. Even Europe and US doesn't have that much, and they have unpaid leave. A lot of countries don't even give full pay.
Yeah.
Right, and it's okay to extend, but you're just extending because, okay, I any which was wanted to leave the organization, but why not do this? And then, do you do this? Do you give a 6-month paid leave to a maid?
Yeah.
That is where the dichotomy, the class difference, everything else starts coming in. You will say that I demand this because this is my right. You will not give it to a fellow woman, probably working as hard and probably needing it more than you do.
Yeah.
So I think all these factors also have to be considered.
I completely agree. So equality has to be on both sides. I completely agree with you. And I think most of the times, one of the areas that when I keep talking to a lot of women saying that, stop just preaching about I'm a woman, so I need these things. You start feeling equality within yourself first. Okay. I understand that, yes, we sometimes need a seat in a bus, which is important because of specific health conditions or specific reasonings, but it doesn't mean that everywhere you need a reservation. Somewhere it is also important that there are other human beings, let's put it like that, along with you, who may be in equal need of the same thing. So let's not put a biasness by saying that just because I'm a woman, I think these things are set for me and it's my right, and then I can exploit those things as well. So yeah, I completely agree with you, Nishant, on the point that you made. And what Gigi spoke about, the long breaks. I think what we saw over the years is that when women used to pass out of STEM, they had fewer options. So most of the women would move to teaching jobs, research, papers, and things like that. The mainframe jobs were either not too many in plenty, let's put it like that, one. Second, I think somewhere we were very scared about picking those jobs because they would be demanding, commanding, pressurizing, and we may not be able to do it full time, let's say. So we were, in those situations. But I think today the times have changed. Women work in shifts as well. We see a lot of companies where women are working in shifts. Many women are actually preferring other shifts so that they have morning hours and they can kind of balance that. Women are traveling. I mean, earlier when we used to travel, I would hardly see a woman along with me in the queue. Today, I think every 5 women, and then I also see 5 male colleagues. So it's so beautiful to see, even in a 5 o'clock early morning flight, you find women traveling. So there's a lot of happening on that front, a lot of changes happening. And it is very important somewhere at any space of life, we kind of keep supporting each other, in smaller bits and pieces, not just doing larger things or setting up role models, but in smaller ways to kind of help. And one of the small questions that leads me kind of to this is that, Karishma, if you could just, while before we have one or two questions being highlighted, I think the overall report speaks about the growth and the rise, and few things that organization today, community today should put together and kind of do it for more women, because that directly adds to your economy. That's the first thing first to look at. Having said that, done, today, non-tech industries are really, really promoting a lot of women in tech. And the percentage rise of the tech women in non-tech industry is expected to grow from the current about 21% to 25% just by 27. Whereas the tech industry took a longer period of time to have women in tech. So having said that, done, we'll need more women, we'll need more awareness, we'll need more employability to be created in across places. What are the three things as women employees that I should upskill myself on, okay, to kind of make myself more easily being noticed, being aware, or rather get employed? What should be my preparedness for getting employed by being a woman in tech? Because earlier, if I was a techie, let's say whether a male or a female, I don't need to speak, I don't need to present, I don't need to look good anywhere, I don't need to be part of any longer discussions. I'm just going to do my back work, and I'm going to present my work, I'm going to code, I'm going to put across my program, and I'm done. Today, a techie is equally required to present, showcase, be part of discussions, be part of meetings, and then present the data and all of that. So having said that, done, one, I'm already a woman in tech, I have a load of responsibilities to fulfill, but at the same point in time, I'm expected to be good, look good, talk good, speak good, be confident, and be able to present my work in tech. So how non-tech industry, which is any which way is very less on women, in maybe, let's say, look at corporate roles, what are the few things I should be prepared with? So this is for our audiences, and this is also one of the questions that an audience has asked us.
I think switching industries, one of the things we as professionals, be it male or female, we have to be very vigilant about is how adaptable or how steep our learning curve would need to be. That is something we should maybe do some research on while we're switching industries or switching roles or switching companies, etc. What the role demands is something we need to be very clear about. And in addition to that, a very critical thing would be to see how to solve a business problem. Because whatever we do is somehow linked to how the business deliverables would be impacted, what will be the, let's say, a productivity improvement, or if you are working on, let's say, an automation project, which is like very, very in thing in all the industries now, be it tech or non-tech, how is it impacting the end P&L of the business, or maybe productivity or efficiency of the business. So these are very two common things people look in the candidates across levels, be it a junior level professional or a senior level professional. These are some things which define a role or a professional to a large extent. Apart from that, things are changing very fast. So we also have to be equally agile and not really stick to our do's and don'ts. So being flexible also would help.
Perfect. And to add to a point, I think there's a lot of investment in self-training that all
Absolutely.
people should constantly invest on, and keep aside a specific amount of time, money, and your interest to learn a new skill. Maybe in a span of every 6 months or every year annually. Keep that agenda at your end. So that's an answer from our side. Gigi, a question from one of our audiences on what could be possibly the next futuristic top 2 or 3 skills or roles, that as women in tech, I should opt for, I can opt for.
See, I think all the new generation tech roles, right? Like AI, analytics, cloud engineering, software engineering, quality analyst. I think all these will continue to stay while there is a lot of talk about AI is going to take over some of the tech roles like developments and all that. But then, of course, I feel there are wide variety of roles that women can do, especially because all the tech roles that I'm talking about here can be performed by women. I mean, absolutely, there is no gender. Um, uh, I mean, it can be performed by both men and women, right? But largely, what I also feel, right, to your point, Munira, apart from excelling in the technology, that specific tech skill, you need to really good in communication, articulation, engaging with people, because today it is no more a space that you are just doing some of these works in isolation, right? You need to be able to, especially if you are ambitious, you need to move up in your career ladder. And this also brings back the question that you have raised to Karishma, right? When it comes to non-tech organizations, because I have been working in the industry, right, all these years in my career, you got to be far more agile, because if you're in a tech space, then you are doing what the specific JD, right, or
Right.
specific job role. But there, here in the industry, you need to do a lot more. I mean, you are working in a very, very diverse team, because I may have a team who is doing product management. You have people specialized in a software engineering, cyber security, cloud analytics. Everybody is together, and when you are in a space where, and there are limited set of people who are specialists, but then you are also expected to be generalist, because you need to understand each other's work to be able to really deliver as a team, right? So I think agility is very important, and of course specialization helps. But then as you move up in your journey, you need to really diversify your skill sets to be able to be successful. Because unless you do that, you won't be able to move up, right? So if you are a software engineer, you need to become a TL. You need to become an architect. You need to become maybe a product head. So or a DevOps head and all that. So it definitely requires you to be very agile, very diversified. We should, while we should strengthen our core skills, but there are a lot more skills that we need to acquire to be able to, or develop to be able to become successful in the bigger journey or long term journey, right?
Yeah, I second that. And I'm sure all of us know that, how many of us today are actually working only within the framework of our job role? I think 90% of all of us, whatever job role we are expected to do, we are doing many times a lot more different, while we circle back to what we are expected to deliver. But at the same point in time, it has linked to many other things. It does not just come in a structured format saying that, okay, this is what 9 to 5 only was what I'm expected to do. That's a very great point, Gigi. And we, in the best interest of time, just one last quick question we have from one of the audiences. And Nishi, I think you're the best person to answer this. While all of this we discussed today about women in tech, and being more inclusive, agile, and kind of continue to our learning space, I think today one of the things I feel, and that's what one of our audiences wants to know, that many women still, even in the workforce at many levels, still lack a lot of understanding on financials, whether it is their own financials, whether it is the financials that they draw on the work output. So let's say financials equating to measurables. What am I supposed to measure on myself? Or maybe even in form of reading my compensation. Okay, so what is my fixed, what is my variable, in three simple ways, or three simple things that you can highlight today, how as a woman in workforce, is it one very important for me to be very clear on these aspects, and how I can kind of help myself to know more on this.
I think financial acumen is again very, very important, and it goes back to the fact that there was no empowerment. Women were not earning, and even when they started earning, they left that job to somebody else. So again, from a conditioning perspective, we just say, "I don't understand all of this." A lot of us still do that, right? The investment part of it, you ask somebody else to take care of that, but don't do it. I think it's a brilliant question. It starts by learning to manage your finances, understanding your salary slip, understanding how basic investments work, whether you want to invest in the stock market, whether it's a mutual fund, or however you want to understand. But you cannot say that I don't understand finance. You need to understand finance. That narrative has to change. The second is, while you may not want to get into the details of it, understanding how your company is operating at large, even going through a basic thing of understanding a balance sheet. And there are numerous courses even available on that. Whether you're profitable, not profitable, what is the revenue, what is top line, what is bottom line. Understanding these basic concepts is extremely important. And if you aspire to be a leader, you are going to manage your P&L, you are going to have budget. If you aspire to be an entrepreneur, then even more so you will be responsible for doing this end to end. Take small steps. First, start with managing your own finances. Take conscious efforts to understand the finances of the organization that you're working in, and then if you can go a step further and read a little bit more about the ecosystem that your organization is in, that will also help you understand the competitive advantages which are resulting in the financial ups and downs, and ultimately how does it result into a better valuation. But a very, very pertinent question, and everybody should have financial acumen.
Yes, absolutely, indeed. And I think that's the best, on a best note to end this webinar. While we have so many questions coming up, and to our audiences, we kind of will come back to you on all the answers separately. In the interest of time, we may not be able to answer all questions, but it was an amazing session today, and so many insights from all the beautiful women here with me on the panel. And I wish that maybe each one of us is able to make an impact, empower at least one woman along with us with our example. I think our mothers have empowered us. We are fortunate our parents put us through these challenges. Today, I am sure we will be able to inspire more women to join the workforce. And I think it is very important to continuously rise, increase, grow. There's nothing which is enough in life. So one should never think of whatever you've achieved, it should be good enough. It's all the time. It's high time that we move out, ask more. Do not assume. It's important. You may be wrong, but it's okay to ask. It's okay to take help. Many a times we also are scared to take help from our peers or other our colleagues or our bosses even. I think we have that fear factor. So let's have that. Have less of FOMO, of missing out on things. I think we have a fair share of everything. So let others also have a fair share at home. I think that's how we should put it as. Thank you very much, Gigi, Nishigandha, and Karishma. It was so nice having all of you with us on this platform. We'd like to speak more, but maybe on another different agenda and session. And we request and urge all our viewers to download our report. It is available on all the social media sites, available on our website, and even available on LinkedIn. Recommend reading the same, and your views and feedbacks are very valuable. Thank you so very much. Thank you, everyone here.
Thank you, Munira. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, and good.